We
Okay.
have, okay. So I guess we are live right now.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
You can
evening.
use the comment section if you are still with us. We are live at the moment. So we have four persons on the meeting. So I want to apologize for starting this late. It's not supposed to be like this. We had a little bit of network issue and it's rained here. So I think it's all contributed to all of that. Okay. So we are here to talk about web accessibility and search engine optimization (SEO). This is a very important topic that every front-end developer should have on their CV resume. This is the best practice, right? So we have Jome Favorite. Jome Favorite is a custom success engineer at Hashnode and also a seasoned front-end developer. He's my mentor, actually. If you guys don't know, he's my boss. So, Jimmy, maybe you can start to tell us a little bit about yourself and then start your class, okay? If you are still there, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm still here. All right. So good evening, everyone. So
All
I
right,
am
okay.
favorite Jome,
Yeah,
like
you can go
Nelson has
on.
mentioned. Yeah, I hope everyone can hear me. If anyone cannot hear me, please let me know. So
I think the network issue is happening again. Jimmy, are you
okay.
still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm here. I'm here. Can't you hear me? Hello.
It's breaking. I can't, but it's just breaking.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Well, let me just proceed, or should
Okay.
I proceed?
John Paul. John Paul said that he can hear you. So I think you can continue. Maybe it's from my own end. I think you can
Oh,
continue.
okay. So yeah, I am Favourite Jome, a customer success engineer at Hashnode. Yeah, so I recently got that job offer. Yes, so you can find me on all these social media platforms. Yes, so some fun things about me. I like sharing some things I have learned, right? And yeah, I like playing chess most times. And I recently found a new hobby playing the keyboard, which is the piano. Yeah. So I have been in the tech space for like 4 years now. So I kind of have an idea of a little bit of what is going on. So I previously worked at Perio. The reason why I added that there is because while working at Perio, I had to deal with a lot of accessibility stuff and SEO stuff, right? So that really shaped me um, to get to know more, right? Because those web as web accessibility and SEO is something that most people might just overlook, right? Mostly when you're just learning web development. So yes, so today we'll be looking at web accessibility and search engine optimization, right? Before we proceed, I would like to make it clear that I am not an expert with, I just want to be frank, right? I will not call myself an expert when it comes to the topic of web accessibility and search engine optimization, right? But I would say with my few experience, right, I could share one or two things with those of us, those of you that are coming on board newly in the boot camp. So I would like to think that you guys have been educated or you guys have been taught HTML, CSS, JavaScript in the boot camp, and now it's time for web accessibility and search engine optimization, right? So with web accessibility, it's commonly or accessibility as a whole, you would see it most time abbreviated as A11Y, right? So that's just the abbreviation for it. And then there's search engine optimization, which is abbreviated as SEO, right? So anywhere you hear SEO, you should know it's search engine optimization. So we'll be looking at how these two things relate, right, in being a a content developer, a web developer. These are things that you should know, right? They're very important. So let's first look at what is accessibility, right? So yeah, accessibility, as I said earlier, is often abbreviated as A11Y, right? Which is basically like if you exclude the letter A and exclude the letter Y, the letters in between are 11, right? So that's why it's A11Y. There's a more technical jargons to why it is named like that or why it is abbreviated like that, but then let's not dive into that. Right. So when it comes to accessibility, you should know that the web is fundamentally designed to work with everyone. Right. The web is meant to be accessible to everyone. So if someone unfortunately does not have a hand, right? There are people like that, right? If someone does not want to touch their mouse, they just want to use a keyboard, they should still be able to utilize the web and perform any action they want to do. Yeah, so that is basically what web accessibility is. All right, all right. So that's basically what the word accessibility for the web is all about, right? Being able to access the web no matter how you are, no matter where you are, through listening sites and so on. So now, when someone describes a site as accessible, right, it basically means that the users can use the feature of the website regardless of whatever means they find themselves, right? So if you are in a situation, if you find yourself in a situation where your touchpad of your system is bad, right? You should still be able to access the web. You should still be able to interact and do what you want to do, right? So you as a web developer, you as a front end developer, even a back end developer should know these things, right? So you all should know the fundamentals, right? And that's what we're here to do today. So I'm here to share the fundamentals of web accessibility. We will not go too deep, right, into coding and all, but we'll just touch a little bit there and there. So now, yes, let's move to the very first thing you learn if you're learning web development, which is HTML, right? So you should know that HTML is accessible by default, right? If you use it correctly. So let me say that again. HTML is accessible by default when used correctly, right? So HTML is the markup of the site. When you visit any site, what you expect is text. Yeah, basically you expect text that you should read. You're going to the site to for some content. I know now site has been modernized, like you can play games on some website. Yeah. Even games too are supposed to be accessible, right? But that is beyond the scope of this discussion today. Right. So today we're only looking at, let's say, a basic website that has a bunch of text, like an e-commerce website, which they has text and products. So how are people going to interact with those kinds of websites? Now, um, yeah, so let's move on. Right. So now, why should we care about web accessibility as a web developer, as a front-end developer, as a back-end developer? Why should you care? Why should we care? Right. So that might be a question most of you might have when you're learning something new, right? Can't I not just skip this? Must I learn it? Right. The good news is that you don't have to learn everything about web accessibility. You can learn bit by bit, and with time, you keep learning more, right? So, um, why should you care, right? So, the number one reason you should care is because of inclusive and equal access. You are building a website. You should, and now we know that websites should be accessible to everyone at every rate, right? So imagine if Facebook was only accessible to people in the UK, right? It's not accessible to people in Nigeria, right? That would be bad, right? So ideally, the idea of the of websites when it was initially planned was for it to be globally accessible, right? The world wide web. There's literally word in the acronym. Yes, so it's for equal access, right? So now there's another reason why you should know about web accessibility: legal compliance, right? Legal compliance basically means they are legal. um like if you don't make your website accessible in some countries, you could literally be sued, right? So the reason why I mentioned Preview earlier when I was introducing myself, right, where I worked previously, is that because a it was not a Nigerian company, right? So I was doing a remote work, and they are aware of this kind of, like, people can literally sue a company just because of the website is not accessible. Right. So if a blind man wants to access your website and your website is not accessible, you could say, okay, I'm going to sue this. Why would they not make their website accessible? Right. So companies can be sued because they fail to comply with these regulations, right? Which could lead to legal consequences and penalties. So another reason is better user experience, right? Let's say my hands are oily and I just want to use the keyboard only to interact with your website. I should be able to do that, right? So it would also improve user experience, right? And then there's something else to improve: SEO benefits. If your website is accessible, right? Search engines like Google, Mozilla, Mozilla is not a search engine. Yeah, but Bing and other search engines, right, would rank your website more just because your website is accessible, right? So these are things search engine look for. So if you are going to build one day, you're going to be a big developer and then you are building sites that you want to sell, right? Or you're selling a product, or you're building a site to sell a product, right? These are things you should consider, right? Making sure that it's accessible so that you can also get SEO benefits. If any of you have questions, please just ask in the comments. I am checking. So if you have questions, ask. Um, yes. So now, let's look at the languages. I hope you guys have gone through, right? I hope you guys have gone through HTML. I hope you guys have gone through CSS. I hope you guys have gone through JavaScript in the bootcamp. So, we'll look at how we can make our website accessible with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? Yes. So there's something called semantic HTML. Semantic HTML. If I'm talking too fast, please let me know also, right? So there's something called semantic HTML, right? It's basically the correct means or the correct way of using HTML elements with their intended purpose. Like, you could use some elements wrongly, right? We'll talk more on that later, but let's see some examples of semantic HTML, right? Some examples are header, the header element, right? Then we have the nav element, then we have the main element. So the header is used to represent like introductory content to the beginning of the page, right? So you land on the page. Ideally, you should see the header first, then you should see the main content of that page. Then no, you could even see the nav first, right? The nav element first, then before the header, then before the main content, then next thing is the footer, right? So that is like an ideal structure of a page, right? But there are several elements, right, that can give you that are called semantic, right? Like article sections, aside, right? These are elements that you should use properly. You should know when to use them properly, right? Um, so another instance is when you have like a button. A button is also semantic, right? Because a button like the browser knows when you use a button, your browser will be able to tell that it's a button because when you press the tab key, the button will become focused, right? By default, all buttons are like that on the web, right? Unlike when you use a div and then you style it as a button. We'll get there with CSS, right? So basically, this is basically a basic semantic structure of an HTML, right? Where we have the HTML tag, the head tag with meta tags, right? So the meta tags are also very important. There are a lot of meta tags that I did not cover here, right? Yeah, I'm just using two, right? But then meta tags, the title tag, very, very important, right? You have the body, the header, and so on, right? And so on and so forth. Yes. So still looking at HTML and accessibility, right? There's something we call ARIA, right? I don't know. You guys might have not heard of it since I assume everyone here is new, right, in the bootcamp. Um, so ARIA basically means accessible rich internet applications. So they define set of roles. There are attributes you can add to your HTML, right, that gives more meaning to that HTML element. So in a state where you have to use a div like a button. Now, I did say it's not good to use a div as a button, but then there are those situations where you need the div to act like a button. Like when you click on the div, you want an action to happen, right? So an example would be where you have an image in a div. When you click on that image, the image is inside the div, but you want the action to happen when the div is clicked, not the image itself, right? But the div. Even an image too should not be clicked, right? It should just stay an image. Yeah. But let's say there's a scenario like that. And when the div is clicked, you want something to pop up, right? Any pop up like saying hello world or whatever, right? So now a blind man gets to your site, right? Excuse me, right? So if a blind man was to use your site, they open your site, right? Maybe your site is for selling something useful that the blind man needs, right? So he gets to your site. A blind man would not be using a mouse or a touchpad, right? That we that can see will be using. So they would need like a screen reader, right? So different peoples with disabilities, right, will need different tools, right? So one of those tools is like a screen reader, right? So the screen reader will basically read the content of your website to them, right? How do we tell this kind of person now that we want them to click on on the on the div that is not a button, right? We need to be able to tell them that this div is actually clickable. So when they hear it, they can press the tab key to navigate to the div, and then they press enter to perform the action, right? So that is what Avia attribute is all about, right? I feel this is advanced, so I did not go through it in my slides, but I will show you some things once we are done with the HTML and accessibility section. Right, we'll visit the website and I'll give you an example. Right, but then there are some attributes like area label by, area described by, area hidden, and so on and so forth. Right. Yes. So now we'll be looking at CSS and accessibility. Before we move to CSS and accessibility, let me just show you something real quick, right? So there's this website LSUI. I will not bore you with everything that is on the website. Basically, I want to show you something real quick, right? Just to show you what the Arial label does. Now, on this button, we can see it's a button, but then it has this type. It is a button, yet it has this attribute called type that is equals to button, and then it has this area has pop-up, which is a menu. So we could go to the Avia documentation on MDM. Most of my slides, by the way, it was referenced from MDM. So let me know. You guys can do that later on, right? Take go on this page, read up more on area attributes, and learn how to set them up. But what I want to show you is this. You can see that the area has pop-up is menu. So there are other values they could have, right? This area expanded to show if the the, the button is expanded or not the button itself, but the button, when you click on it, is performing an action, is opening this. So you see, once I clicked on the button, the area expanded value now is false, right? Because it is like the options is closed, or the menu. This is supposed to be a drop down, right? So that drop down is closed. Now I toggle it back on, you can see that it is now true, right? So that this is just to give you an example of what the area attribute is doing, right? So if a screen reader is present, if I had a screen reader on now, when the screen reader is reading the content of this website, when it gets here, it will signify to anyone, right, that's using the screen reader that, hey, this stuff, this button is clickable. When you click on it, okay, the button is actually a menu, right? You can see the menu is mentioned here. So when you click on it, something will open, and if you click on it, the menu will close, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to illustrate that real quick. So let's proceed with the slide. All right, so now let's talk about CSS and accessibility. So we know CSS is for styling, right? We know CSS is for making our website beautiful. So what does it have to do with accessibility? You might ask for that. So yeah, but you should know CSS plays a crucial role with web accessibility, right? Because of basically colors, right? So how does CSS help with accessibility? The first one I have here is construct of colors and background colors. So when you want to add like colors to your website, like okay, you have a text. Let me find something real quick, so that I can illustrate my point. Right. So yes, so this is an accessibility feature, right? Because it's signifying to me that can read that this is a link. So I keep reading each component exposes information about its current state. Where I get here and I see this is different. Just by looking at it and I can tell that it's different, I am notified that something is special about this text. And when I move my mouse, like I'm hovering on the text, I can see that the icon, the cursor icon has also changed. So these little things are what we know. We are conscious of it because we've been accessing the web for a while now. I assume everyone here is conscious of, like, when you over on the link, the menu changes, right? So, but then you can use CSS to change that behavior if you like, right? Now, if you change this kind of fundamental behavior, you are actually making your site not accessible, right? So the web or HTML by default is accessible, like I said, but with CSS, you could improve the accessibility, right? Like the first point I mentioned was con- color contrast, rather. So by changing the color of this text, it made me as a reader to easily identify that, hey, it's a link. And if someone with a disability like cannot see, but to be able to, like, when the screen reader is reading, because they are using the anchor element, the screen reader will be able to tell that, hey, this is a link that points to sorry, that points to HTTPS, React.js, blah 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 blah. Right. So sorry for that. Let me present my screen again. Right. So font sizes and styles, right? So with CSS, yes, so the way font sizes and styles affect accessibility is that, yeah, example, my mom prefers text bold, right? So if you're building a site and you prevent the user from being able to increase the text size of that website, that means your website is not accessible. To illustrate my point, so we are on MDM website now. If I change my settings, I really hope I know how to do it here. Yeah, because I'm used to Chrome and I had to use. Oh yeah, yeah. So this is what I want. So now let's look at the size one more time. Look at how, let me open the dev tools. I hope everyone is familiar with the dev tool. If you are not familiar with this stuff I'm opening, you can comment below and say you're not familiar with it. But this is actually called the dev tools, right? Basically, it allows you to see like the content, the HTML content and the CSS, and then you can manipulate it as you like, right? So I can see they are using a, oh, right. I am looking for font size. Unfortunately, this is not a good example. Let me try this. Don't worry, I'm taking my time to illustrate the points. You get it. You get what I mean. No, let me just show you. Right. So if I increase this from medium to large, and I come here, did you notice anything different? The font size became large. So let's say I want, as a user, I want every site I visit, I just want the website, the font size of the website should be large. It should just grow to the size I want it to be, right? So, but if you build a site in an inaccessible way, there's a way for you to prevent this largeness from happening by default, right? And I will show you that. If I say, okay, I want all my text to be very small and nobody can read them, you see, I'm just illustrating that MDN website is very accessible, right? So they must have thought about accessibility. So Nehemiah, I mean, sorry, Nelson said his network is bad, so he, he got kicked off. He got kicked out of the network. It's fine. It's fine. So I'm the only one left here. Okay. I don't know. Let me just reply him. Sorry. All right. All right. I'm back. I'm back. Okay. So let's proceed. Right. So to illustrate my point, let's make this large, and then let's select this text and make the font size 24 pixels. No. Let's make it 13 pixels. Now, let's go and change this stuff again. Medium. Can you see this is changing? If I change it to very small, this is changing, but this did not change. Let me make it very large again. This did not change, but every other thing changed, right? That's because I'm using a fixed font size. Now, I don't want to go through this their website to figure out where they are getting the fonts from. It must be because of CSS Cascade, they may have the font somewhere. But then I'm pretty sure that they are using a, res, a relative unit, right? You can also say, oh, let me fix this. Let me make this medium back. So it's affecting Canva too. All right. All right. So they are making use of a relative unit, right? Which are like M, Rev, which are relative to the viewport. So they will also grow or shrink depending on your browser settings. So these are ways to consider SEO, right? So you should get into the practice of using REM, EN, and other relative CSS units, right? So font style, focus styles, rather. So I don't like, let me just close the slide again, right? So now let me showcase my website for this. So people write Jome site. Yes. So yeah, I have this website that's pretty outdated now. Should probably update it. But then if I were to press the tab key, you see the tab key moves, notice this became focus. My website is not also very accessible because when I tabbed here, it shows this outline because it's a button. But I could have gone more. I should have gone the extra mile by making sure that when it's on focus, the color of the text should be white. Like when I over on it, you can see it's white. when it's on focus, it's not white, right? So that is something we could improve on, right? So if I tab again, it goes down to this section, right? But if I had overdone it, the appearance is different from when I tapped on it, right? So you could make the two the same, right? With CSS, right? So when you tab, when you focus, you can make the action or like what happens the same, right? But then this is what I ended up doing, right? So you could press the tab key and then to keep going through the website. So this is an example of how to build and I'm not saying my website is very accessible, right? But at least it's it's okay, right? And you can see this section is not videable, right? I could, now you see, this is an example of an inaccessible thing. This view all project, people can barely read it, right? And if we are to, okay, okay. So yeah. So you see, when I over on it, look at the contrast. It says one, there's this question mark there. Basically, I don't want to go in depth into that, but those are signs that your website are not accessible, right? And the browser has a bunch of stuff to help. There's an accessible tab. Wow, I should be using Edge more often. Okay, there should be an accessibility tab somewhere. All right, let's proceed. Let's proceed. Um, like I said, I had to use Edge because my Chrome browser was misbehaving. Yes, so building a responsive website by default is also a means to build building websites that are accessible, right? So you should always build like I like building mobile first, right? But there are people that like building desktop first. But the end goal is basically your website should be accessible and should be responsive on both a mobile device and a desktop device and even a tablet device, any device that anybody is using, right? For now, the device are getting crazy. We have like yeah, let me not go into that. Right. So there are hidden content. Hidden content. So with HTML, you can't hide a content, right? But with CSS, you can like make the content. You can change the visibility. Oh no. With accessibility, changing the visibility is not good, right? But you can make the content absolute, like change the order of the content, right? By making its position absolute, whereby it will not be shown to us that can read, right? But for screen readers, when the screen reader gets to that section, screen reader will be able to tell that, hey, there's an element here, and this is what it says, right? Just to give more context to people using screen readers. You might not fully understand what I'm talking about, but then, yeah. Um, but this is an introductory class, right? You guys are still going to do more research to learn more, right? Then there's keyboard navigations and styling, right? So how do you tab, like when you tab around your site, what happens, the styles that applies? Yes. So yeah, let's move to JavaScript, right, and accessibility. Right. So let's learn about what how JavaScript can help with accessibility. Right. So the first point I have here is keyboard navigation. Right. So when you're building, like let's say you have a form now, right? Oh, I have accessibility form. Right. So let me know this form as an example. So you have a button. Oh no. Yes, so a perfect example for accessibility with keyboard, right? Is for example, this website now. This is the website, by the way. If I press Ctrl F, it opened this pop-up where I can search. Even though this is not what I was expecting, but it performed Ctrl F performed an action, right? So there was an event listener on the browser that tells you that once Ctrl F is opened, there should be a pop-up that allows you to search, right? So so these are things that you should know, right? And some websites like Ashnode where I work, Um, we have like some accessibility feature, right? Like Control K. Control K opens this command search where you could navigate through the website. Basically, some users expect this kind of features to exist in your website, right? So you just press Ctrl K to perform an action. Even the browser itself is accessible to the point that you can press Ctrl L to focus on the address bar, right? See, I was not focused on the address bar. I know you guys cannot see my keyboard right now. If I press Ctrl L, the the address bar will be focused, right? Then I can easily change something. So if I don't want to move my mouse all the way here, I can just stay here, press Ctrl L, start typing, go to another URL, right? So the idea, basic idea is that if one day you are maybe you're not even a web developer, you are now an application developer, you should think about all this kind of accessibility feature, right? What users are already used to, make sure that whatever you're building is easy for them in that regard, right? So let's proceed, right? So there's focus management. Focus management is basically when something is highlighted that you're doing. You remember from my website when I press the tab key, when it's navigated for it to, like, you could tell where I was at with the tabbing, right? So that is like focus management. So if you have I don't know if it's work on Canva. Yeah, it works. So you can see when I press the tab key, it focuses on this add comment. So you could use JavaScript to dynamically tell it to focus on this first. I'm pretty sure Canva is doing that because I'm sure they have a lot of links here. So by default, HTML would focus on the first thing it identifies as focusable, right? Like if I'm here and I press the tab key, it focuses here. This, I'm sure this is a link. So yep, it's a link. But then for some reason, I'm guessing, I'm assuming here, but it's not focusing here, but it's focusing on this link. My guess is that they've made it so that when you tap, it should focus on the first content or the first possible content of the website, right? So then you could proceed, you could proceed. So with JavaScript, you could manage this action, right? You could do a lot of stuff with JavaScript, right? The next thing is accessibility with forms. When you're dealing with form, you should make sure it is it's focused, right? So we have an example of the form. Yeah, so I can show you guys this first of all. Yeah. Okay, no. Okay, let me just open. Oh no, I am taking more time. I'm sorry. So let me just open an article, and in the comment section, you can see this form. It should be focused when I click on the comment, so I can immediately type. Right? I don't have to move all the way to the form in order for me to type. Right? I close it. I click here, and I should be able to type. I close it. So basically, that is what accessibility with form, right? That is a simple illustration, right? So if your website has an error, right, you should also make sure that error message is shown. When I mean your website, I mean like your form inputs. If you have some sort of error, you should make sure that error message is shown to the user or is accessible to the user. Because in the case where the user cannot see, right, you want to still make sure that the screen reader is able to read out the error message, right? And then there's area attributes. With JavaScript, oh my God, look at my slide. My slide is not accessible because for some reason I decided to put this star here and people cannot read what's there. So I'm sorry, but um basically for area attributes, like the example I showed you with headless UI. They are pretty much using JavaScript behind the scene to toggle between the states, right? That is why the area attribute of the button could change, right? So they are using JavaScript to change the state or the value of that attribute, of the area expanded attribute, right? So that's pretty much it when it comes to JavaScript. Obviously, there are more things, but then I'm just summarizing everything you guys should know, right? And yes, then we move to search engine optimization. Search engine optimization. Yeah. So basically, engine optimization is the process of optimizing websites so that it could rank higher on search engines, right? So search engines like Google, search engine like Bing, and several other search engines we have out there, right? But the popular ones are like Google and Bing. The rest they exist, but then like I don't know how many of us uses other search engines, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that. So when you start working for like big companies, as a beginner, you might not really care about search engine optimization like that. You just build your site, push it out there, right? But then when you start working for companies, mostly startups, right? Not just mostly startups, big companies also care about SEO, right? But startups will care even more, right? Because they want to sell their products or they want to sell whatever they are doing, their service or whatever, right? So that's why I included Preview in in the slides actually, because we cared about SEO, right? We knew that we had competitors, right? So we wanted our site to rank better on Google so that when people search for the service we're offering, right, our website will show first, right? Now there's a lot that has to be done in order for your website to show first. Like when if I search for web development now, right? Let's see what show. So this is using Microsoft Bing, right? You can see the first website that shows on Microsoft Bing is the website from the military schools. Now the military schools has been existing a long time, right? That's what even got me started into web development, content. Yeah, yeah. So the website shows up first. Now Code Academy website shows up second. Then there's Mozilla. I, I I expect Mozilla to actually be the first, but for some reason, um, when I mean Mozilla, I mean Mozilla Developer MDM, right? So like um this is the legit documentation of everything related to web stuff, right? So you can just go to the website and anything related to web you can read about it there, right? So I expected it to show first, but unfortunately, everything is supposed to show first, right? So that means these guys they have a better search engine ranking than the other one showing next, right? And as a user, you would not like you always like want to click on the first website you see, right? When you search for something, you want to click on the first website or the second website or the third website. Other links are stories, right? So when you're working for a company, right, these are things you should care about. Mostly if you are like in the front end space, right? If you're not doing back end, maybe you don't care about this. But if you're in the front end space, SEO is something that most companies would really want to invest in, right? Some companies might even have like a dedicated people to invest in this, but then you as a front-end developer, you should know this, right? So let's proceed. Yeah. So why should you care about SEO as a web developer, as a front-end developer, as someone that is getting started in tech? Why should you care about SEO? Right. So there are several reasons. Number one is because of visibility and traffic. Right. Like I said, you want your website to appear first. Right. That's visibility. Traffic means that you want more people to visit your website. If your website is ranking high on a search engine like Google, that means you're going to get more traffic. More people are going to likely click on your website, right? Yeah, competitive advantage, right? What does that mean? You have so there are different people offering um, selling products on Jumia. No, sorry, selling products online, right? So we have Jumia, we have Gigi, we have AliExpress, we have other ones that I cannot think of, right? So now you as a buyer, you want to buy a new laptop, right? You want to buy a new laptop, and and you search for the laptop name, right? And for some reason, Jumia shows first. You're likely to go and check Jumia first, right? And see what the price is. Then let's say Gigi shows in the 13th page, for example, you will never get there. Trust me. like just here, like this now. We have, I don't know why Bing does this. I think Google does a better job than with this. Like you have ones, there are so many, just shows you three links, then you have to click. Yeah. Like I said, I don't use Bing most often. I don't even use this browser most often, but yeah. So let's say Gigi is showing in number 5. I'm sure by the time you navigate to 2, 3, 4, you would have been done, or you would have probably got what you wanted and just ignore the and use what you found, right? So that is what competitive and advantage is all about, right? Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's proceed. So another reason is brand credibility and trust, right? So the more your website ranks higher on search engines, the more you would have credibility, right? More people will trust your website because Jumia ranks at the top. Like when you search for some things, right? You can say, yes, I want to buy something from Jumia, right? So there's also analytics and insights, right? Companies love analytics, right? It helps them keep track of how their website is doing and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, things you should do regarding SEO, right? As a content developer, what should you focus on with SEO, right? You should focus on the page speed optimization, right? You want your website to load fast. Your website should be mobile responsive. You should structure your data markup, right? So if let me just go to Chrome and search for I don't even know what to search for. Yeah, I don't think this is structured markup. Yeah, but basically, yes. So this is structured markup, right? That allows Google to be able to identify what house is from this website, and then structure it in a presentable way for everyone to view, right? So those are the kind of things to do with SEO, right? URL structure, right? So if you are creating your website, you make sure that your URL is in order, right? Don't just put any URL there. Google is going to frown at it. Search engines are going to frown at it, right? Make sure your URL structure is clear and SEO friendly. Um, Meta tags optimization. So there are different type of meta tags we could use now. So there's title. Title is not actually a meta tag; it's an element, right? So I just included there. But then there's title element, and there's the meta description, right? There's meta keywords. Keywords are to help, like if yeah, your website could offer a service where you want to make sure you highlight all the keywords that your service could probably like users could search for, right? So that's what keyword is. Canonical. Canonical is basically when you have the content somewhere else, you want to reference it in your website. So you make use of that meta tag. Then Open Graph. Open Graph, I think it was created by Facebook, but is a way for, let's say when you send you send you send a link to what link would I use now? If I send my GitHub profile to Nelson, for example, do I know my GitHub profile? Yeah, so Jome, okay, so mine is Jome favorite. So yeah, this this stuff you see here is a meta description of my GitHub profile, right? You see, it has my name, it has a little bit of about yeah. So those are um, those are meta descriptions basically of my website, right? Those are OG, right? Then Twitter has their own, right? They call them Twitter meta tags, right? I don't know why Twitter is different. Twitter does not want to use the open graph. Yeah, more about that data, right? Then is heading tags. Your heading tags should be structured. That means you should not use H3 before H2 or H5 before H3. Or say you should on the website your headings should be structured. So you should use an H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and so on, right? Then image optimization. Make sure you optimize your images before you put them on your website, right? That is something most of us don't do, right? I'm also guilty of that and guilty of other things, right? But then these are things you should that could help your website rank better, right? Because if your website is loading very fast, um, people are likely to open your website that is loading very fast, right? So there's something called robots.txt and site map, right? These are things that are needed to be added to your website too. So in conclusion, right, web accessibility and search engine are very crucial, right, in every website. If you want your website to perform well, make sure you have make sure you are thinking about web accessibility and search engine optimization, right? So so I guess that will be all, right? I hope with this few point of mine you've been able to learn one or two things. Um okay, someone is saying I should go back to the last slide. I don't know where I'm sorry I missed that message. So I don't know which slide you want me to stop. Maybe you just reply again and say where I should stop. Or I'm sure you get the slide back. You get the slide on the on. I would send the slide to Nelson. Nelson will send the slide to everyone. Yeah. So yes. So I hope with this few point of mine you've been able to learn something new, and we'll call it a day. And let me go to the next time and see what is there. So yeah, so I'm going to let you guys have ask questions. If you guys have any questions, please ask them now before we round the session. Right. So if you have questions about web accessibility or SEO, anything, the one before this. Okay, I guess you mean this. No, I don't think it's this one. I guess you mean this one. I'm just reading the comments by Anulag Raphael. Yeah, Raphael. So yeah, if there are any questions, you can ask in the comments section. If there are no questions, then it's fine. We'll call it a day, right? Um, Nelson is not here with me, so I don't know if how we're going to end the stream.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I've been having a lot of facing network issues. I just come in and go out. So, but I've been trying to like follow as much as I can. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So, guys, if you have any question, I just sent them the material, the Canva link in the
All
group
right.
chat. So this is the points when you have any question you ask. Okay, so me, I'm trying to think about because I know I'm guilty of not following the SEO and the web accessibility guidelines. I'm very guilty of it, honestly. I'll always be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that later. But I'll just, at the end of the day, I'll just focus on building out the functionality and then building out making the UI to be very fine. So, yeah, this video is something that we'll definitely have to come back to and then pay very good attention learning. So, Jome, I think we have a question from John Paul. The question is, you said that we should always make our websites accessible and making the text change according to preference of the user rights. Did you get that question, Jome?
Yes. So we should, yes. So like I said, we should make our website accessible, right? So if the user wants their site to be large, right, we should not hinder them from doing that, right? So we should make sure we test all those things, right? Mostly when you're working for like a big company, if you're working for yourself, no wahala. Or if you're doing a website for yourself, no wahala. If you know you're going to have like tons of users using your platform, you're building a product, right? That where users are going to make use of that website. You should make sure you look at all these things, right? Make sure if the user wants their website to be big, mostly if it's a website where they have to like be reading a lot of content, right? There are some people that will prefer it large, right? So if they turn on that setting in their browser, you should not be the one to hinder them from making the website large, right? All those kind of things you should take note. I can see you're asking again. So how can we as developers craft our own HTML in such a way that it will get large when you want users to also okay. So yes, this is where you can do that with CSS. So I guess your question, from your question, I can tell you are still very new, right? So new to like the text space and all. Uh, no offense, I'm just saying, right? But with CSS, there's something called relative units, right? So there's let me just search for this, right? Relative CSS unit. So there's a bunch. I'm sorry. I prefer Chrome relative CSS. All right, Chrome, help me here. Show me. Yep. So okay, just okay. So basically, when you're using relative units like the CSS gives you, right, is a way for you to um think about all these things, right? Where there's even a unit that will allow your website to grow, like the text rather, make the text grow and shrink, right? It's called the clamp. It's not it's not a unit rather, it's a function, the CSS function, my bad. But then the function allows you to pass in units, relative units that can grow. Yeah. If you want to find out more about that, right, you can just search for clamp CSS. So this guy here. So it's a CSS function that allows your website to grow and shrink. Like the text will literally shrink depending on the viewport. And then yeah, so do more research on relative unit, right? Learn what relative unit is, what absolute unit is. Those would help you understand more, right? So this is an introductory class, as I said earlier, right? It's just to introduce you to this concept. You don't have to learn everything now, right? Just have it in the back of your mind. There's something called accessibility, there's something called SEO, right? And you should one day learn it properly, right? Well, me, I'm not going to say I've learned it properly, but at least I have, like, I'm conscious most times of when I'm building a site that okay, I have to make sure this is accessible, right? Yeah. So, are there any more questions? All right. I see no more questions. I guess we can call it um, a section. Wow, I see a lot of people on my slide. Interesting. Yes, so if we have no more question, then I guess we can call it a day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me. Per day. Yes, so thank you. I hope we do this more often, right? Yeah, so thank you guys for having me.
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you, John Paul. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you everyone that joined in today's class on web accessibility and SEO. I hope this is just the starting point. Go through the slide, keep researching. The internet is your friend. There's a whole lot of resources there to help you. Okay. So our class will continue as usual. Tuesday we have class on JavaScript, and then we continue. We are the last week of the Build Bootcamp. So yeah, I will see you guys in the group chat. And if there is any question, maybe directed to me or Jome at any point, you just reach out to me. I will reach out to him. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be ending today's section right now. Bye. Thank you very much, Jome. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Bye bye, everyone.